Welcome to The Green Rush, a podcast about the intersection of cannabis, the capital markets, and culture. On a weekly basis, hosts Ann Donahoe and Louis Goldberg of KCSA Strategic Communications speak with the CEOs, financial experts, cultural icons, legislators, and generally interesting people moving the cannabis industry forward. This week, Ann and Louis are speaking with Keith Stephenson, the first African-American in America to run a medical cannabis dispensary. Keith is the founder and CEO of Purple Heart Patient Center in Oakland, California, a dispensary he started 11 years ago, now serving 10,000 patients a month. At the Purple Heart Patient Center, Keith implemented lab testing so rigorous that it exceeds the standards of Oregon and Washington. He was appointed to the California Cannabis Commission Advisory Panel, where he advises the state on regulations protecting consumer health and safety. Don't sit back, lean forward. Now on to our interview with Keith Stephenson. Hey, Ann.
Hi, Louis. Happy Friday.
Oh my God, thank God. This has been a good week, but a long week, and the next 2 weeks are going to be insane. We are going to be at the Benzinga show in Toronto next week with a bunch of our clients, and we're recording this on Friday, April 12th. So
everyone get your taxes done.
Yes, yes, please. But you know what's really exciting? You know what I'm so excited for, which has absolutely nothing to do with cannabis?
I know, and I was just going to try to hum the theme music, and it left my brain. Thanks for not making me do that.
It's only been 18 months for Game of Thrones. So Anne has a Game of Thrones death pool.
Yes. First of all, I didn't even watch it at all until this year. And Steven and I binged hardcore.
Now the question is, do you watch it sober or after an edible or two?
Both.
Both? I'll start watching it sober, then the edible will kick in.
I wasn't, popping an edible at like 10 in the morning on the random Saturday where we watched, but yeah, at night, sure.
It's perfect.
But the other thing is that I think is so key is we watched it with subtitles, and make fun of us, do whatever you want. We were able to follow it, I think, much more closely with subtitles than, I don't know. It would have been really hard for us to get completely caught up if we didn't have that, I think.
Well, they have these things called books too. You can actually read them.
I do want to read them. Have you read them?
I have read them. They're great.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, this is maybe the one instance where I think the TV show is as good as, if not better than the books. And I look at the Red Wedding, for example. The Red Wedding was shocking in the book, but the impact for me that it had visually was so much more visceral. It was amazing. So I want to go through some of my picks because
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. We'll do the easy thing. So you listed everybody, every major character alive now.
Going into season 8. Now that's not, anything can happen on Game of Thrones. So these are the people who we know for a fact are alive.
Yes. So I'm going to very quickly go through whether I think they're going to come out alive, if they're going to die, or they're going to die and become a White Walker. Which was your categories, which I thought were pretty
First
cool.
of all, I did not make this up. We took this from someone else and we made it our own.
Okay, well, I'm still giving you credit for it. So very quickly, Arya Stark, she survived.
Why are you saying it that way?
Arya
Stark.
Arya Stark.
Arya Stark.
Beric Dondarrion, dead. Not a White Walker, but dead. Bran, even though I can't stand him either in the TV show or in the books, he lives. Let's see, Brienne of Tarth.
Gotta go quicker.
All right, fine. Alive. Bronn, dead and a White Walker. Cersei dies. Not a White Walker. Daenerys lives. Davos Seaworthy, he and his knucklebones are going to make it through, but Euron Greyjoy, he's going to die and become a White Walker. Gendry, he makes it. Gilly makes it. Gregor the Mountain Clegane,
That fucker dies and becomes a White Walker, and he kills Jaime Lannister.
Well, all right. Was that a question on there? No.
No, I actually had him. Actually, you know what? He kills Grey Worm. Grey Worm dies, right? Jaime makes it, and maybe the one who kills Cersei.
Keep going. Quick.
Jon Snow makes it. Jorah makes it. The Lady Missandei makes it.
Melisandre.
Varys makes it. Podrick makes it. Quiburn runs away and makes it. Samwell not only makes it, but I think he kills the Night King. Sandor the Hound Clegane dies fighting his brother, who is a White Walker. Sansa makes it and stays as Lady of Winterfell. Theron the Ballless dies. Tormund Giantbane makes it. Tyrion makes it, and Yara Greyjoy makes it. Those are my picks.
So there's 3 bonus questions. Is Daenerys pregnant?
Yes.
Who kills the Night King?
Samwell Tarly.
Who holds the Iron Throne at the end?
Me.
No, not you.
Daenerys.
Fine.
So this had absolutely nothing to do with what we're going to be talking about. But you know what? It was still fun and it's relevant. And not everything is all cannabis all the time. Today's conversation, I think, is going to be absolutely fascinating. It's actually our second take with Keith Stevenson, the CEO and founder of Purple Heart, because the last time I forgot to tape it. So we had this amazing 1-hour conversation with Keith. And at the end of it, I went, oh, man. So this time, we're going to remember to record.
God, I hope so.
Okay, now it's time to start our conversation with Keith Stevenson from the Purple Heart Patient Center in Oakland, California.
Winter is coming. Hi, and welcome to The Green Rush. I'm Ann Donahoe with Lewis Goldberg, and today we are speaking with Keith Stevenson, founder and CEO of Purple Heart Patient Center up in Oakland. Keith, welcome to the podcast. Let's talk a little bit. You've been integral in really shaping the California cannabis market and have been in the industry for decades. Can you walk our listeners through a little bit of your story and your experience?
Yes, I'd be happy to. First of all, thank you for allowing me to come onto the show. You guys have an awesome platform. You've had an incredible group of people who have come before me. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
It's our pleasure.
So my previous experience in terms of shaping the industry started off in Oakland early on, and I'd say around 1995. 1994, 95, when I worked at the first dispensary in the city of Oakland. And from there, I had the opportunity to work various phone banks. And then when I was able to operate my own retail store, Purple Heart, it allowed me the opportunity to work with the city of Oakland. And I was appointed to a board known as Measure Z. And Measure Z was the initial entity that dealt with the taxation and regulation for adult sales. So this was outside of the medical cannabis movement. And from there, we worked on Prop 19, which became California's first foray into adult sales. It wasn't approved at the ballot, but Colorado picked up the same legislation that we started in Oakland, and that's how Colorado obtained that's how they passed that adult sales legislation.
Let me ask you a question. Why was Oakland the center of the entire cannabis movement early on? I mean, it wasn't LA, it wasn't San Diego, it was Oakland, which is, surprising. Why was it there?
Well, first of all, I think we should give credit to Dennis Perron for starting the medical cannabis movement in San Francisco initially, and then it matriculated over to Oakland. So what I do believe occurred was we had a compassionate city council, and they understood early on that there were a lot of sick individuals and that cannabis was a great way to mitigate pain and just make their quality of life better. So from there, we also had just, maybe more important than the council, it was the group of individuals. Somehow we all clustered in Oakland.
So when you guys were doing this at the beginning, did you realize how radical this was? Did you have any clue as to what you were building? Or was it, we just want patients to have access to medicine?
Well, yeah, I absolutely realized how radical it was, in the sense that there was the threat of federal intervention, and just with the negative association of cannabis usage. So when that occurred, it was just it was an eye-opening moment where you could actually try to make someone's life better, and you can still end up going to jail for that.
I mean, were you scared going to work every day? Like this could be the day?
Absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. I tend to think that many of us in the industry have PTSD.
Well, I can recommend something for that.
Absolutely. I think we've all self-medicated. So yeah, to echo what you were saying, it was a very unique situation. There were really no federal friends in the U.S. Congress or the U.S. Senate, and definitely not in the Oval Office.
Did you ever get arrested?
No, I didn't get arrested, but I came close. And I had a warehouse in Oakland that I was cultivating cannabis in, and someone had assisted themselves without my permission into the facility. And when I got there,
they broke in and robbed you?
Yeah, it occurred. And, when I got there, Oakland police officers asked me for my ID. I showed them that, here's my ID. I didn't have any warrants. I provided them my medical cannabis card and showed them my cultivation permit, and they let me go.
Well, because you didn't do anything illegal.
Absolutely.
But, and I think what's really interesting now, so fast forward at this point, 20 years, and you are now appointed to the state of California's Cannabis Advisory Committee, which is under the Bureau of Cannabis Control. And, this is really the committee that's going to be, advising the state and other licensing authorities on the development of regulations that help protect, health and safety, and reduce the illicit market for cannabis. So now that you're a part of this body, what are you going to be focusing on?
One of the things I think we're going to focus on is this year's delivery. We had on our recent commission meeting, we spoke about delivery and social equity. So those are probably like the two issues at the top of the food chain. One of the things that I would like to focus on is taxes. We have an archaic tax system. The tax structure is really too high, and it doesn't provide an opportunity for businesses to make a profit and reinvest that profit into their businesses to scale and make more money for the state.
I'd actually like to talk a little bit more about the delivery side too, because, as Lewis mentioned, it's the Friday, April 12th, and this week was kind of a big week in that I think it was 24 cities filed suit to be able to effectively ban delivery in their towns. What's your take on that? And how do you think it'll work?
I do not think it will work. That's one of the issues we previously spoke on last semester at the Cannabis Advisory Commission meeting.
So, wait. Last semester?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you get graded?
Can you please give me my syllabus? I digress. During our last meeting in the fourth quarter, we actually spoke about that issue, and the issue hinges on the cities believe that they have a right to restrict access. Well, our position was that the state has clearly allowed deliveries in any city or county, and that cities do not have a right to restrict the delivery of cannabis as they would be restricting commerce on public public uh, public roads.
I mean, from a social justice perspective, the vast majority of towns and cities in California do not allow for the sale of cannabis, but there are still millions of patients in these towns, many of them who are homebound, who don't have access to the medicine. Is that the thesis behind the Cannabis Advisory Committee's position on pushing delivery, or is it more about the commerce side of it?
It's more about the commerce side and what Proposition 64 entails. Proposition 64 is for every citizen of the state of California. It's not just for those that live in Alameda or San Francisco or Los Angeles County. And if an individual happens to live in Kings County or Fresno County or Orange County, these municipal governments do not have the right to relieve the citizens of California of their rights.
And they would argue that it's local control, though, right? It's like, yeah, so the state said it, but Mendocino, bad choice. I can't even think of a city that hasn't allowed it, but that's because I'm in New Jersey and not in California. But
Hanford.
Okay.
The city of Hanford, which is the Central Valley.
Right. So if I'm the mayor of Hanford and the state is telling me you have to allow this, is that not going to set up some sort of potential, constitutional crisis?
No, I think the best way to look at that is the city has the right not to license the business. However, the city does not have a right to restrict the commerce.
Well, what also I found interesting on this is I looked at a couple of the cities that were included in the suit to see where they were on Prop 64. And a lot of them were overwhelmingly pro. They voted yes on Prop 64. So like Beverly Hills, for instance, is part of this lawsuit, yet 64% of the people in the city of Beverly Hills voted yes on Prop 64. So clearly their community wants cannabis in some form legalized. But, it seems that the city has said no to dispensaries. And now they're trying to further restrict access. It just seems like it's going against the will of the people.
Yes, and I would absolutely agree with you. I think this is something that's going to play out over the next year. And with all things that affect big business, you're definitely going to see the coalition of businesses that are in the delivery space band together and make sure that things like this don't impede their growth.
So one of the other things you mentioned was taxes, and there is still a robust, illicit market in California, in large part because of the impact on taxes on price. How are you guys addressing that?
Well, one of the things I think we have to acknowledge is that California had a very mature cannabis market. And, the illicit market is not going to go away overnight. However, the taxes absolutely are driving a percentage of sales to that illicit market. The best way that I would think that the state could really deal with this, and local municipalities, because as you know, we have two different tax structures. You have, in some cities, you have a local ordinance tax, and then you have the state tax. So individually and combined, those tax structures are too high. And when you make it so high at the cash register that the cannabis consumer is willing to purchase illegal, untested, bad cannabis, we have to make a choice. And my position is, if we lower the taxes to a sensible rate, more people purchase legalized cannabis, thus increasing legalized sales, and we have the opportunity to make more taxes by lowering the tax.
It's funny. That's the argument for trickle-down economics, but it does make sense in this instance.
Yeah. I think the issue is that who wants to stand before a measure that's going to lower taxes? Politicians don't. I don't think that's an advantageous position for them, because they feel like there's always money needed. Most city governments are fiscally mismanaged. The state can always use more money. However, when you think about it, let's just lower the taxes. That's the best thing possible. You create an even healthier economy in this emerging market. You lower the taxes, businesses make more money, they're able to deploy more capital back into the business. The state makes more money because they're the gatekeeper, and they make money regardless of which way the market moves.
Makes sense.
I mean, that just makes sense, which is probably why politicians are having a hard time with it. Going a bit further on the social justice side, we've talked before in this podcast about the failed war on drugs. And I mean, Lewis made a nod to Reagan and trickle down economics and, Nancy Reagan's crusade. But there have really been, generations of people of color who have suffered at a disproportionate rate when it comes to cannabis related crimes. A few months ago, California passed a law that would make it easier for people to clear their names in cannabis related convictions. Do you have a read on how that's being implemented, or do you think it's still a little too early to understand the impact?
The impact is absolutely recognized immediately. And that means that those scars from the war on drugs can be removed. And, we don't quantitatively, we don't know how many individuals have been affected by having cannabis convictions on their record. However, we know that it has occurred. So any sort of immediate relief is great. As far as the state and local cities rolling it out and helping individuals clear their name, for me, what I realize is that most district attorneys are politicians. They just are, they're just politicians with a badge. So it appears to me that when these opportunities come up, it's coming up prior to an election, and it's positive press. So at the end of the day, I think it's great. Social justice is best for everyone served, and the war on drugs has been a complete failure, and it still is a complete failure. So any sort of movement, moving the needle forward helps.
So I got a two-part question. The first is we really haven't talked about what Purple Heart is. So I would love for you to explain, a little bit in more depth what the Purple Heart Patient Center is, and then what are you doing through Purple Heart to deal with issues of social justice?
Oh, that's a great question.
Did you just say "oh shit" on my podcast?
Oh, I didn't say oh shit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said oh.
I thought you went, "oh shit, that's a good question."
Maybe I did. But
I don't think you did.
You know what? Well, whatever.
Leave it in.
Leave it in. Leave it in.
So what I would say, Purple Heart is a world-renowned legacy cannabis retailer. Now that we've moved forward into this adult recreational market, we've kind of dropped the patient center, and because we're not just a medical dispensary anymore, we are purely a cannabis retailer catering to both markets. And as far as social justice, we are or social equity. Is that what you?
Well, no. Let's stay a little bit more on Purple Heart for a second, right? Like we'll get to like what you're doing there, but how did you start it? There's not a lot of African Americans who own dispensaries anywhere, and we talked with Shauna Macias, who is just a dynamo out of DC. And she, it was really cool. She explained the challenges that she had in starting it. Take us through your story, man. I want to know, how did you do this? How did you make Purple Heart?
Okay. So Purple Heart's been around for 13 years, and we're the longest operating cannabis retailer in the city. I'm the first African-American in the nation to legally operate a licensed cannabis business. So when I started out, I had no idea that these things would occur. So my voyage to self-funding this endeavor started off in my basement, where I had a pretty large basement. I had 20 lights in the basement, and I perfected my craft. Cultivating cannabis is really one of my greatest loves.
Now, was that in your house? Was that in your house?
Yes, that was in my house.
Now I got to ask, was this your house or was this your mom's house? And were you yelling up going, "Mom, I'm growing, leave me alone"? Or was it like,
No, it was my house. It was my home. I actually bought the home because of the basement. And, I think I was ahead of my time, where initially I was cultivating in a warehouse that I communicated to you that was burglarized. And, I just felt like it'd be a whole lot easier if I could just walk downstairs and, go into my little Willy Wonka factory. So,
did you have any Oompa Loompas?
I created a whole lot of Oompa Loompas. Yeah, they were super frosty, very danky.
I think that should be a strain name.
Oh my God, you definitely have to make an Oompa Loompa strain.
Yes, I think we're on to something. So when I designed this grow room, I designed it, in three parts. One room was for clones, one room was for mothers, and the larger part was for flowering. And I just really went in and created an environment that was really about control. It was a controlled environment for plants to achieve their most optimum genetics, characteristics in this space. So, from there, I just perfected it. And the more I perfected it, the better the feedback I was receiving. So subsequently, I saw that the hydroponics shop was becoming a little bit more and more crowded. And at that point, I decided to make the pivot. And that pivot happened in 2004 when the city of Oakland first licensed medical cannabis dispensaries. And while I was unable to get a permit on the first wave, I did get a permit on the second wave. And part of that was just me being tenacious and going to every city council meeting, being politically involved. And at the time, this is a period where politicians were kind of keep an arm's length relationship with you. Like, hey, that's Keith Stevenson. I know he wants to open up a dispensary, and well, let's just see. So it was a journey that I recognized in 1996 that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make the lives of patients better, because at the time that's all we dealt with. And me having juvenile arthritis, I had already had both hips replaced, and I recognized exactly how cannabis was helping me deal with chronic pain. I mean, I dealt with chronic pain since I was 13 years old. So at this point, I was just really happy, and it was something that my mom wasn't really on board with, because being a person of color and her growing up in the South and seeing lynchings and black men tarred and feathered and drugged through the streets of Arkansas, her position was, why would you want to create a situation that you can't manage? However, what I felt at the time, I just felt an innate ability to gravitate towards this space. And it was just, cannabis has always had a heavy pull on me. So when I had the opportunity to move forward, I did.
And are you still growing your own, or are you working with a collective? I guess, how do you, you're not vertically integrated, right?
No, at this point, I'm not vertically integrated. However, I definitely look forward to the vertical integration of the business. At this point, I think that if you can vertically integrate, that says a lot about where you are. Just with the entire way that the state is going, there's just so much more regulation and accountability on hand that we've chosen to focus on just getting the retail operations in place and growing this, and then down the line backing into cultivation. And one of the goals that I had worked on previously was I was working on acquiring the Pirelli tire factory in a city called Hanford, California, down in the Central Valley. And the facility was 1.1 million square feet and an additional 26 acres. So that's what I really wanted to do the vertical integration at. That deal didn't happen. However, it was a great learning experience. And in my preparation for that, and just from over the years, I've amassed 800 genetic strains of cannabis.
Wait, what does that mean? Are they, where does one keep them?
You keep them in a very cold and secure place. And, it's almost like having
like a vault, a seed vault.
A seed vault. And it's like just knowing that how cultivators work. Whatever's the newest strain, they just cross that with whatever was popular before, and the genetics become bastardized. So some of the legacy strains are so hard to find because very few people held on to them. And over the years, what I've done, and this is me holding on to genetics prior to founding Purple Heart. And just having these genetics is like my secret weapon. Like, okay, when it's time for me to vertically integrate, I have things that many people aren't going to have, won't be able to find because of just me being a seed hunter over the years.
Oh my God, I think that's a great brand name too.
Yes, Seed Hunter is a great name. Yes. How did you come up with the name? Purple Heart?
Purple Heart came about as, at the time, Granddaddy Purple was the strain. I mean, it was what everyone wanted in Northern California. And I needed a way to infer that I had purple. And the city wanted us to also have medical cannabis associated names. So I took purple, added the heart because Oakland was the heart of finding Granddaddy Purple. And then I added patient-centered to it so that I could have a more medical sounding name that wouldn't likely invite federal intervention.
That moment where you were saying, look, I need to get licensed. What year was this? And how did you go through that process? If you look at the process of applying in limited license states like New Jersey or Massachusetts, it's unbelievably onerous. It's crazy expensive. What was it like for you to go through that first licensure?
It was quite a feat. I mean, there wasn't nearly as much competition. However, one of the prerequisites is that they wanted you to have experience. And my position was, how can you expect me to have experience on something that you haven't licensed? Therefore, if I had experience, it would infer that I don't listen, that I don't follow the rules.
Catch-20.
It's like I plead the fifth.
Exactly. So with that being said, I was in a position where I had to convince the city that I was capable of running an operation. However, my experience was I worked at the first dispensary. So with that being said, I really put myself in a position and I hyper-focused. Like all I wanted to do was open up a dispensary. So that meant staying up all night, writing emails, sending those emails out so that when the individuals who needed to read the emails, they would see that, wow, this person is sending emails out at 2, 3 in the morning. They're up working. And then I would also drive through the streets of Oakland looking for a retail location at night because it allowed me to, just sit in the middle of very busy streets because there was no traffic, and it would allow me to back up, look at the buildings, and it was much more conducive. So my modus operandi was work at night and sleep in the day.
You've been doing this now for well more than a decade and almost 2, right? I think there is a belief that if you have a license to be in the cannabis industry, whether it's to cultivate or to process or to dispense, that you basically have a license to print money. It's hard to make money doing what you do, isn't it?
Absolutely. I see it all the time. And, having the years in the space, but just being intimately acquainted with cannabis, I've probably been acquainted with cannabis for, I'd say 37 years. And just being in.
How old are you?
I'm 50. I'll be 51 next month.
Good for you. I'll be 49 next week.
Exactly. So
I'm right behind you. I'm catching up.
Yeah. You still got a way to go, pal. You still got a way to go. So I'd say that, years in the space allows you to see things that others just really don't see. And part of the things that I notice is that when I would see these entities going into new states, like Illinois, and they're opening up these states, and they have a first mover's advantage. And I'm saying to myself, why would you spend 40, 60, $20 million building out a cultivation in a state that only has 3,000 to 7,000 patients? It made no sense. And I think that those are the mistakes that were made early on. When you have a market that's not mature like California, and you put forth so much capital, it's like being in a bad car loan. You're upside down. Now, the other thing is that you look at the market in California, where everyone feels like, I can come to California, I can grow, or I'm already in California and I can cultivate. Well, the barrier to entry is a lot different. So you have to have cannabis culture, you have to have capital, and you have to have business acumen. You need all three of those things to make it. If you have 2 out of 3, you're not going to make it. And I see it all the time where the budget to create a cultivation or distributorship, they go so heavy on the initial cost, and they try to build something that they can scale into instead of creating a business that they can scale.
I think you make a really interesting point about California being perceived as this mature market, and maybe in the context of cannabis as it stands now, it is, but at the end of the day, it's also still really an immature marketplace. And black and gray markets and illicit markets, I forget what we're calling them now, are still thriving. What are you seeing on the ground in Oakland? Are you seeing that this illicit market is shrinking? Or are you kind of seeing it like it's still got a really big presence in the lives of people in your community?
I think it still has a presence. However, with the price of cannabis has come down dramatically. So when you're talking like on the illicit market, $1,500 tops for premium indoor cannabis, well, there's just not that much money to be made, for those that may want to export it out of state. Everything is the price point per market. Excuse me, the price point per the illegal market is imploding, while the price point for the legal market has increased. Those that are able to establish brands and create something different have a greater opportunity. And that's one of the things that I've shared with individuals that may still continue to operate in that illegal market. And I'm telling them, like, listen, not only is the sky falling, but the price is falling. And if you don't matriculate into this legal space right now, while all the operators are learning how to become compliant with the new regulations, how the state and local municipalities are learning to govern, and we're all trying to learn. No one's hit the bell curve yet.
Right. But they're giving you an on-ramp. Like, this is the opportunity. Like, in a couple of years, it's going to be too late and you're going to be thrown in jail. Yeah.
And not only, thrown in jail or priced out, or you're just not going to have the business acumen to succeed. And, when you're used to doing something in a manner that has no regulatory oversight, it's easy. Well, you can't use the same products that you're using in the illegal market in this regulated market. But you have, however, I tell them, you have an opportunity to establish yourself and build a brand. And if you do it now, the sky's the limit.
So before my next question, I just want to remind everybody we're speaking with Keith Stephenson, CEO of the Purple Heart Patient Center in Oakland, California. Has California done enough to set up a system that takes care of the people who have been most harmed by the uneven and unfair law enforcement around it?
I believe they have, and that's not to say that the work is done. That's to say that the acknowledgement that these systemic issues have occurred is great. The fact that the state has put capital and they've allocated capital for the social equity operators goes a long way. So I think the state is slowly getting there. And for someone like me, I want to digress what you asked about social justice and social equity earlier. It helps for me to give operators a space on the shelf at Purple Heart. So these are the things that I'm going to start moving towards, that I engage and interface with more operators that have come online so that they have the opportunity to have shelf space. That's one of the things I did previously in the medical cannabis market, where I broke a lot of brands. I brought them into the industry, gave them shelf space, and I want to continue to do it. And I realize that the position that I'm in, that I've been fortunate enough to create and be blessed with, that my work's not done. I still have to push the line, and I still have to keep in mind that there are other individuals who are in the same space I was 13 years ago, and just I want to be just as open to them as everyone else.
So what's next for you? What's the vision for what Purple Heart can be, and how do we get there?
The vision for Purple Heart is to open more retail locations, for us to maintain our credibility in the industry, for us to be great operators that want to push the industry forward. I look forward to vertically integrating my business and playing a part in the delivery market, also cultivation, and just really establishing many brands, with the final being Purple Heart being a global brand where you can find Purple Heart products and brands in various markets throughout the world. And for us to really witness the manifest of our destiny is to go from California to Massachusetts, and to, or actually, how about from the pineapple to the Big Apple?
So let's talk about that's an awesome vision. What is it? What's the next step? What does it take to get there? What, in terms of fundraising? I mean, you have a captive audience of people who are interested in not only the industry itself, but investing in it. Tell people what you're looking for, and we can definitely put in a link to your email and kind of get conversations going.
Absolutely. I appreciate that alley-oop, and I promise you I won't.
Slam dunk it, baby.
Just put it down. Put it in the hole. Put it in the
And
hole.
one. He's fouled on the play. So I appreciate that. What I figured that what we need, what's required, is that to attract that Silicon Valley pedigree talent, having those that are eager to come up in a startup company that's been around, that has healthy bones, and for us to attract capital to deploy. So first of all, it would be acquire capital so that I can go out and hire the C-suites that are experienced in every facet, whether they deal with retail, technology to assist in the delivery space, distribution, manufacturing, cultivation, all those things. And some of those, on the cultivation side, I have those individuals that want to come on board and work with me. The next would be to really allocate the capital to the retail space. And just, being in the industry, I've lost enough money, so I know where the money's at. That's the joy. I wouldn't be losing anyone else's money. I've lost mine. I lost enough of mine to where I don't want to lose a penny.
Now, we've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who've had no problem raising capital, right? They tell these stories that I just went around, had my investor deck, and boom, checks came flowing in. What has your experience been like?
My experience has been, I created a deck and a plan for cultivation previously. So what I'm going to focus on now is creating a deck for the retail operations and reaching out or having, platforms such as this where individuals can reach out to me. And, I'm accessible at Keith, Keith at purpleheartpc.org, and to let me know what's going on. And, there have been opportunities for me to access capital. I just wasn't quite sure of the individuals that I would be doing business with. So part of a capital raise is not just someone offering you money.
Has to be smart money.
Has to be smart money.
And trustworthy.
It has to be someone that you can agree to disagree, and that you're in a position to make sure that your ethos align. It's difficult when I've seen it happen many times where you take on investors and you don't see eye to eye, and now you're in a position where, I'm married to someone that I don't want to be with, and I don't know what to do. So part of me not having those lessons in history, I think, work well for me. It provides me the opportunity to move forward with the right group, the right team, and just knowing that not only am I receiving capital, but there's an intellectual value inside of this relationship as well.
We've got just a couple more questions. You've been really generous with your time. Keith, you've been in this industry for 30 years. Was there a moment in the 90s where you thought, I'm out? I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be doing this anymore. And what was that? And then how did you turn that around and either rekindle or recapture that passion that you had?
No, I've never been in that position. And I think the part of it was I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it because I actually loved being around cannabis. I loved smoking cannabis. I loved growing cannabis. I loved just having cannabis in the house. There was nothing that I didn't like about cannabis. So my belief is, when you love something and you love doing something, it's not work. It's a labor of love. Where, others have come into the industry and, they make a lot of money, then they get bored, they don't know what to do. Well, I'm just thankful that I've never dealt with that. And, the opportunities that cannabis has afforded me are life-changing. They really are life-changing.
And you continue to use it for arthritis, right? For rheumatoid arthritis?
Yeah, to some extent. It's changed. I may not consume cannabis as much in terms of smoking or the vapor pen, and I'm more akin to use it, for the CBD benefits and the edibles as they are now dosed. And, you're not eating like a space cake if you were in Amsterdam. So, I know I can eat this one piece of a gummy bear or gummy care, or, just a gummy. And I know it's 5 milligrams, and, I'm not going to be in a position where I can't function. So, cannabis, where we're at now, I think is just, it's an awesome space to be in. But you have to love what you do, because there are times that you're taxed. You deal with personnel issues, you deal with financial issues, you have exorbitant taxes. You see your top line not where you would like for it to be, and you have to, you got to steady the course. You got to hold on. There are times I'm just like, oh man, you've got so much on your plate, but I love what I do, and that keeps me going.
I love that. So at the end of every episode, we ask our guests to tell us something that that's being underreported, or that, if there was a story that you wish would appear, in the Los Angeles Times or the San Francisco Chronicle or the Oakland what? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Well, it used to be the Oakland Tribune. However, let's say the Wall Street Journal.
We'll say the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. So what's the story you want to read tomorrow in the Wall Street Journal?
I would like to read a story about Keith Stevenson and, and the saga of Purple Heart. And, I think it's a compelling story to tell. Me being the first African-American to legally operate a licensed cannabis business, being in Oakland, coming from South Central LA, and so just operating in a business space that's dominated by white males, and having the experience of seeing the war on drugs firsthand, rising all the way from where I grew up and being a part of the California Advisory Cannabis Commission in the largest which is dictating and regulating cannabis in the largest cannabis market globally. I think that's an incredible story.
Me too.
I'd read that.
I would read that.
And, just overall, being a thought leader in the space, not, it's not just about me being a person of color, but it's just the value that I know about cannabis, the industry, the history. There are just certain things that you can't replicate without the experience. So, I'm looking for the day where cannabis is truly legal. We can have banking, we can have access to capital, and it's just a phenomenal space. I often tell my friends in the industry, it was like, the individuals who are scaling their businesses now, those they can be the American Online, the AOLs, they can be the Yahoos. I was like, remember, there was an Apple who came after them, there was an Amazon who came after them, and there was a Google who came after them. The fact that others have moved forward is a great thing before us, because they're creating a lane. And I would like for the industry to show more love. And, it's great to be competitive, but let's not be competitive to the point where one feels like in order for their success to occur has to be at the detriment of someone else. That's just not the case.
Amen, my friend. Keith, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity. And not many have come on the show 2 times.
That's true. The problem is our audience is only going to get to hear the one time because I screwed up and forgot to hit the record button the first time. So this time we've got it recorded.
I appreciate it. You're like my trainer. He's like, do it again. Do it again. Better form. Yep. Well, I'd like to thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Ann, for everything. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
As we do it with you. Keith, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Our thanks to Keith Stevenson, founder and CEO of Purple Heart Patient Center in Oakland, California. Their website is purpleheartpc.org, and you can reach Keith at purplepc.org. To chat with us, to send us email, send me hate mail. You can shoot us an email to greenrush@kcsa.com. On Twitter, you can follow us at @the_greenrush, and on Instagram, the handle is @the_greenrush_podcast. And that, my friend, is one take, Shay. One take.